when there's an escape route just to the right or just to the left or a little modification, and the person says, no, I'm just going to keep doing this thing, smashing my face against the window until I die.
Alarm clock in the morning? Are you just like, oh my gosh, snooze, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I can't take it? And then even then when you have to get up, are you like dragging yourself out of bed? It's not supposed to be like that. That is a sign that something's not
aware
right.
of it is diagnosis. When you actually look at what that word is, first of all, it has die in it. And the next word that's hidden in there is gnosis. So this inner knowing.
Because that's how it happens.
But wisdom that
change from one reality tunnel to another is rapid.
We have ancient stories that are stored in our salt, and those stories are constantly reaffirmed.
I don't
we have
care
ancient
what it
stories
is.
that are.
I trust Heidi and Thaddeus, but
Your
I trust
modern
Heidi
work
and
life
Thaddeus.
is designed to keep you busy. Have you eating foods that make you feel tired, lethargic, and give you just enough energy to feed it to the monster corporation? We're kept moderately sheltered and addictively entertained, and of course passively obedient enough to keep doing it. Do you long for something more but don't know where to start? These corporate escape artists have broken free from the ordinary. They walk unfrequented paths. They break pattern, and they've broken free. Fix your finances, hack your health, and unlearn the lies keeping you stuck in the matrix. Welcome to the Corporate Escape Artists Podcast. In this video, I'm going to take you on an esoteric light journey. This all comes from a very specific book that we will get into on the secrets of light. The book, you'll find out what the title is here shortly. This has information that was never shown to you in the mainstream science, yet is vitally important to our knowledge about where we live and what, in fact, is going on all around us. You will be questioning what you know about sunlight before you're done with this, and you'll be learning many hidden magical things about the sun that's over our heads every day. All right, let's get into it. When the sun's up, we're awake, and it's time to work. It's time to cover up if we're outside and prevent sunburn. And that's about as much thought as we give the sun. Now, my opinion is that scientists, with all that they have in their minds from book learning, actually don't know very much about the sun. In fact, the hidden, or just meaning occult, things about the sun, so the occult things about the sun are far more interesting and important and are kept from most scientists. Scientists' textbooks that they get in college and the professors that teach them all there is to know about the sun, tell them specific facts that then we all believe are all that there is to know. Like the sun is 93 million miles away. It's a ball of burning hydrogen gas, and it can burn your skin if you stay out in the sun too long. It has waves of light from X-rays all the way to radio waves, so high intense to less intense, and those all come from the sun to the earth. Some scientists, of course, go slightly deeper. They look at sunspots and they study other things about the sun, but really that's about all they're told. And they tend to recognize only what they're told from their textbooks. However, the sun has infinitely more information coming from it. We can only see a tiny spectrum of light with our eyes. That's called the visible light portion. And in fact, in visible light, we're seeing a very tiny section of the electromagnetic spectrum that can be measured. Invisibly, there's more light, the visible spectrum being only what we say is 2% of the light spectrum. So there is light even when it's dark. It's just that we cannot perceive the light in the darkness. And we know that there's more light. So we know about gamma rays and X-rays, and we know about infrared and ultraviolet. So we know these ultraviolet rays, even though we can't see them, can give us a tan or a sunburn. And even though we also know that there's invisible light from X-rays or gamma rays all the way to radio waves, that's only the light information that we've built detectors to see. These machines can see light in spectrums and frequencies we can't. But could there be more light that we don't have the machines or the eyes to see coming from the sun? And of course, there must be. Just because we can only measure gamma or X-rays doesn't mean that there's something beyond those. And as you'll note from quantum physics and others, every time we find a particle, there's a smaller particle and a smaller particle and a smaller particle. And in fact, what you know of particles, if you've been paying attention to the science, atoms, electrons, particles, they're not even real. They are a cartoon description that you can put into a textbook of a way of describing the information and the physical representation of what we're seeing. But they're not, in fact, real. Like an electron isn't a particle, a little dot revolving around the nucleus of an atom. It's in fact a wave, and it is everywhere in that electron field all at once. It's not an individual particle. Those are cartoons. So everything at its core is really energy, and all energy is really just light. So we obtain information from this energy. Our bodies are energy, and we're perceiving through our bodies, our brains, our eyes, energy or information from the sun. And we read some of that information. So we only have detected recently receptors in the body that read blue light, melanopsin receptors, and ultraviolet light, neuropsin receptors. These are new discoveries in the body. So could there be more receptors that we are obtaining information through from the sun? Almost certainly, and we just haven't, quote unquote, discovered them. So when we see blue light in the sun, that sets our circadian rhythm, and we know that that works because we have lots of studies on what circadian rhythm is and how it's set, which is set through seeing the sun and specifically the blue. So what does all this information that we can't see and we don't know about actually do? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So specifically, we're going to talk about information from this book. So this book is written by, well, it's not written by, it's written by a group, or the Izor collection out of France, and it is a translation of a French written transcript of verbal teachings. So Christian mystic Amram Ivanov has some of the answers about sunlight, and I'll be sharing his thoughts through his book, Light is a Living Spirit, with you. He was a Bulgarian Christian mystic monk living kind of and teaching in the 1920s to the 1950s in France. He only taught orally. His lectures were written down and made into books like this one, first in French, and then in 1988, they were translated into English. So I will be reading from this gentleman's oral lectures that were written into the book called Light is a Living Spirit. And this information is critically important because the more and the deeper we go into science, especially as you get into quantum science, the more we comprehend that information from sun and the vibration of atoms and light is far more important than we ever knew, and that science has no explanations, but others, from alchemists to mystics, claim additional information, and some of that is contained within this book. So I'm going to read a number of passages from this book that I found extremely interesting, important, and also hidden. So I'm going to start out on page 12. The physical world as we know it is simply the condensation of primordial light. So have you ever been taught in school that rocks, crystals, any physical matter that we can see and interact with is just frozen light? Now you're taught that it's all made of atoms and that atoms vibrate with frequencies, and that if you look deeper, the majority of every physical object is empty space. And all those vibrations are just different forms and frequencies of light. Yet you're not really taught that everything at its core is light and vibration and just frozen or slowed down light that forms everything here on Earth. So continuing, what does the silkworm use to spin its cocoon, or the spider to spin its web, or the snail to make its shell? They all draw a substance from themselves. If you know how to look at nature properly, you will see a great many phenomena which can throw light on questions which thinkers consider to be the deepest and most unfathomable mysteries. One day, in fact, even scientists will, quote unquote, discover that light is the primordial matter from which the universe was created. And if man learns to set about it, he too will be able to create. So according to the book of Genesis, the very first event in the world was the creation of light. God said, let there be light. But what is light? So in Bulgarian, there are two different words for light, svetlina and vedalina. Svetlina designates physical light, which has the same root as the verb which means to shine, whereas vidalina designates spiritual light and is formed from the root of the verb meaning to see. It was vidalina that was condensed into material form and gave us physical light, so the spiritual light. Perhaps, and this is still him speaking, perhaps we can understand this better through a Crookes tube. So let me find you a Crookes tube here, right here. So a Crookes tube, at each end of the tube in which a vacuum has been created is an electrode connected to a source of electrical current. When the current is switched on, the cathode emits a flow of electrons in the direction of the anode, with the result that the immediate vicinity of the anode is illuminated, although the cathode, the source of the energy, remains dark. So this light that's being created is actually being created from a flow of electrons or information. So think about our sun. Is the sun itself a ball of burning gas, or could our own sun be a massive flow of electrical or light information? It could be a portal, a flow of information into our realm that is so energetically high that it creates, by the force of that information coming in, it creates the light when it hits our environment. So it could just merely be a lens or a portal for information. So think about the sun as actually the black sun. And this is where people get this idea of the black sun from. So there's this concept of the black sun, which feeds the information to the sun we see. You can think of this like a Wi-Fi router that's receiving information from that cable that comes in from the yard or the power line to your house that's blasting information to your devices. This is the coaxial cable blasting through the sky with the information that renders this world, this matrix, and it's so hot that when it exits that pipe, that cable, it is extremely bright and aka becomes the sun. Now the National Socialists, aka the Nazis, also had this concept of black sun that they were very interested in. So I think this whole concept of the black sun is interesting to know about, and the books really talk about all the esoteric information surrounding this. According to the book Light is a Living Spirit, there are two forms of light. The black sun sends vidalina, the spirit, to the luminous sun, and the luminous sun sends visible light that we know as visible light. They call it svetlina, back to the hidden sun. It is on the return journey that the spirit is transformed into light. When God made the first movement, his spirit, the word, went into action, and when the spirit came back to God, it returned as light. So in the beginning was the first movement of the divine spirit of the universe, which is light. This is ancient knowledge, an extraordinary ancient knowledge of the human aura. Again, reading from the book, light is the subtlest state of matter, and conversely, matter itself is no more than light in its most condensed form. The whole universe, therefore, is made out of the same matter, condensed, subtle light. Everything around us, all matter, all crystals, all material things are just light slowed down to a condensed form, so that really at its core, everything is light. So all things around us, this is the esoteric teachings, are actually just frozen or really slow moving light. And this is really good news, because that means we can create matter from light, and we can soak up light at any time of the day, assuming that we get outdoors into nature's light. We absorb that light through our eyes, our skin, and we can begin to create with that light. This is some of the esoteric or hidden occult knowledge that we need to remember. And this means, to me, that if light is just concentrated into matter, that if we absorb light into our bodies, we can create in our bodies anything that we need. This is where it gets super interesting. Do we need to have healing peptides in our body? We can create those with the light that we absorb, because all the spectrum of everything on this entire earth is contained in sunlight, if every object is frozen or slowed down light. So simply by absorbing sunlight, we can create with our own bodies anything that we need. And that is likely where this breatharian concept comes from, if you know how to work with the light. Back to the book. In every zone and region of the universe, therefore, we have the same fundamental matter, or the same light, with varying degrees of condensation or subtlety. Everything that exists on Earth in a solid, condensed state exists on the etheric plane in a more refined or purer form, and this is the whole point of our spiritual work. To learn how to find all the things we need in the subtler, finer state, which most nearly resembles the primordial state. So, hopefully you're all doing this. When we go to watch the sun rising in the morning, and this is a practice that Amram in his, I don't know that you call it a temple, but the monastery where he was living, every visitor, every child, everyone in the monastery, every single day would go to see the rising sun. When we go to watch the sun rising in the morning, this is what we are doing, nourishing ourselves with the purest of all foods, light. When Jesus said, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst," he was not thinking of physical hunger and thirst. He was speaking of the hunger and thirst for truth, wisdom, justice, and freedom, of the ultimate hunger and thirst, which ask only for fire and light. How many of you were taught that? Continuing on to the next chapter. And the chapters aren't really numbered because this is a oral lecture. The source of visible light is the sun. But what exactly is the sun? Physicists say, and this was like 1930s, 1940s, he's already questioning science and the physics. Physicists say that it's a giant kind of incinerator, at the center of which the temperature is 15 million degrees, and that this heat is produced by a constant process of atomic fusion in which hydrogen is transformed to helium. In fact, though, only the great initiates who have the power of projecting their astral bodies into space have actually been to the sun and the other planets and have firsthand knowledge of what they really are. I have often spoken to you about the sun, and in particular, I have told you that the modern science tells us that sunbeams are streams of photons, but that initiates see them as, important here, tiny wagons laden with food. So sunbeams are tiny wagons laden with food. Sunbeams do not arrive on Earth empty. Wherever they go throughout space, they take with them all the elements necessary to life and growth of plants, animals, and men. But they also convey many much subtler elements that we can use to further our spiritual development. Sunbeams can be compared to miniature wagons carrying supplies of food. In an extraordinary circular flow of traffic, they come to the earth at tremendous speed, empty themselves of their precious load, and return to the sun by an invisible route. And these wagons carry not only supplies, but also passengers, beings who have been sent to earth for some particular task, and when it is done, they too return to the sun to recuperate and refresh themselves. All this is new to you, isn't it? But there's something else that you don't know either, and that is that this circulation of the sun's rays in space finds its replica in man. Our heart is the sun, and it sends wagonfuls of rays out into the different regions of the physical body, and its millions upon millions of citizens, ourselves. When the wagons reach their destination, they unload their supplies as they have inevitably lost something of their initial purity. Before going back to the sun, they follow a circuitous route to purify themselves and get rid of the wastes accumulated on the way. The circulation of the blood in the veins and the arteries of our bodies is simply a reflection of the circulation of sunlight. As above, so below. That's my words. Simply a reflection of the circulation of sunlight in space. For the solar system is a body, the sun is the heart, and light is the blood in which the heart pumps out to the members and organs of the body for their nourishment. The rays of the sun reach out into space and touch the earth and the other planets and their oceans, their atmosphere, and all the creatures, and supply them with everything they need. Each ray of sunshine is a source of energy. For this reason, when man's other sources of energy, coal, oil, uranium, and so on, are exhausted, he will turn more and more to the energy of the sun, for its resources are limitless. But the energy contained in sunlight is not purely utilitarian. Light is a living spirit which comes from the sun and establishes direct relationship with our own spirit. When a ray of sunshine strikes an object, whatever it may be, it gives it something. Even the stones on the ground need the life they receive from the sun. The sun's rays are the only things that are capable of sustaining, nourishing, and increasing the flow of life in man. But he has to learn how to absorb them. If you open yourselves wholeheartedly to the action of the sun's rays, you will feel that they begin to work for your regeneration and resurrection. If you want really to sense the power of the sun's rays, to feel the ultimate force of their purity and their godliness, you must continually prepare yourselves in advance every day for your encounter with them. If you don't prepare yourselves, you will be just like all the other ignorant, comatose human beings who let the sun's rays pass them by without realizing what wealth they contain. And then they moan and complain, "I'm hungry and thirsty, weak and destitute. There's no light in my darkness. Won't anyone help me?" And yet everything they need is there in the sun's rays. If only you knew how to send us, if you only knew those who send us those rays. Yes, the sun is peopled with creatures who are far superior to us, and they look down at us. Sometimes they smile at us. And we, well, where are we? I know that it is very difficult to get human beings to admit that light is anything more than a physical wave. Their minds are closed to the notion that light is a living spirit, and it is for this reason they are not capable of receiving all the benefits the sun could give them. You must organize your lives in such a way that light plays an increasingly large part in them. But more important still, you must be constantly aware that it is already present in all created things. And in this way, you will be in a position to benefit from it more fully. If you are conscious of the fact that the cereals, fruit, and vegetables you eat are a condensed form of sunlight to which they were exposed as they were growing, you will be creating the ideal physiological conditions for those rays to be absorbed and diffused in your body. If you breathe, convinced that with every breath you are drawing light into yourself, you will be preparing yourself to receive light. On to page 30. The rising sun. Remember that those rays of light are living creatures who can help you solve all the problems of the day ahead. But only that day's problems, not those of the next day or the day after. The next day you must go and seek their advice again, and once again, only for a day at a time. They will never give you solutions for 2 or 3 days in advance. They will simply say, "Don't worry, come back tomorrow and we'll give you an answer then." After all, you eat every day, don't you? You don't store up provisions in your stomach for a week, but only for 1 day. Same is true of light. Light, like food, has to nourish you every single day. Why not get in the habit of doing this exercise, for example? You're sitting there waiting for the first ray of sunlight to appear. because you're all outside, right? Watching for the sunrise. Wide awake and attentive. As soon as the first rays appear, you begin to drink them, to draw them into yourself. You imagine that you are drinking the sun. Instead of just looking at it and breathing it in, you eat and drink it, thinking all the time of the light that is spreading through all the cells of your organs to strengthen, vivify, and purify them. This is such important esoteric information that is absolutely hidden, and yet it is being taught from all cultures at all times about the sun. All right, let me skip forward here. Unfortunately, you are well informed about everything except the essentials. You know how to learn a trade, how to earn money, how to get yourself a good position in society, and your life is focused exclusively on those concerns. But have you ever been taught how to find light? Never, because they want us to be more enslaved to the material world. Of course, that's my own words. If there is any one area which you should really study and concentrate on, it is light. What light is, how it works in the universe, and how we too can work with light. He who neglects light on the grounds that he has got too much to do, that he must think about earning his living, and so forth, is on the wrong track. He starts talking about gold, and people are so fond of gold and eager to possess it. They should try to understand, therefore, that rather than hunting for gold, they would do better to look for the light, because light is the head, whereas gold is only the tail. Light is the soul and the spirit, and gold is the physical body. In the past, alchemists used to prescribe potions which contained gold, and even today some tonics can be had in which there are salts of gold. But that is not the best way to introduce gold to your body. It can do you some good, of course, but not enough. Gold has to be eaten, drunk, and imbibed inwardly in the form of ideas and thoughts. The very best, most luminous ideas and thoughts. If you do this, then yes, you will obtain true gold. Unfortunately, this is not what most human beings do. So my words, real alchemy is in the heart, not in the physical laboratory, but the alchemical chamber of our hearts. What we hear of alchemists in the lab trying to turn lead into gold, all of you by now should know that that is just a way of describing taking a base metal yourself when you come into this earth and converting yourself to gold, which does not change or transmute to anything else, which is the highest level of thoughts and vibration. Okay, back to the book. All human beings think about is getting rich at all costs, just as quickly as possible, and the result is that gold becomes a screen between themselves and their fellow men. They see other people as obstacles to be overcome, rivals to be eliminated, and they become cruel and hard-hearted. Okay, so he's talking more about gold and how to find true gold. Perhaps you will object, but people who have lots of gold, lots of money, are influential. They can have whatever they want. Yes, they can have some bric-a-brac, some shadows, some smoke. And then after a while, they realize that not only have they really got nothing at all, but they have lost their health, their peace of mind, and all their friends into the bargain. Only those who have understood that light is the only true gold will obtain everything, knowledge, love, and happiness, and in addition, all the gold they want. True, if you have got a lot of money, it will open the doors of the material, physical world for you, but the other doors, the doors of peace, happiness, joy, and inspiration, the doors of all the qualities and virtues will remain closed to you. What is the point of having all the doors to the material world open if the doors of the inner sanctuary remain closed? So think about light, because it is light that brings wealth, not money. It is light that brings spiritual power. It is light that brings true enjoyment. When you possess light, you find that you take pleasure in the least little things. A glass of fresh water tastes as delicious as the elixir of eternal life and quenches your thirst, as though the water were actually coursing through your veins. It's an indescribable feeling. And this is why putting intention into your water makes such a big difference. Continuing. There are a great many people in the world who yearn to receive divine revelations and experience the thrill of inspiration and ecstasy, but they have the impression that all is extremely difficult to achieve. In point of fact, it is very simple, so simple that if I were to tell them how to set about it, they would not believe me. The result is that they will never do anything to obtain these things, so they will never know the splendors of the divine world. Many years ago, when I was still a young disciple of the Master Peter Duanov, I asked him, what's the best way to be close to God and develop my spiritual faculties and virtues? And he told me, you must think constantly of light, concentrate on it, picture the whole universe bathed in light. You must seek the light, you must concentrate on it, eat it and drink it, attach more importance to it than all other precious things on earth. As soon as you have a free moment, close your eyes and fix your mind on the image of the light. You are waiting for a train or in the dentist waiting room. Instead of reading all the rubbish you find in magazines, spend a few minutes thinking of light. If you're on the street, for instance, and you find yourself assailed by negative feelings or thoughts, obviously you cannot stop and close your eyes. Otherwise, there might be a crowd around you in no time at all, and people would even bring their chairs and sit and watch you, and you would be arrested for obstructing the traffic. But there is nothing to prevent you from stopping in front of a shop window as though you wanted to look at the goods on display, as long as no one can see you from the inside, concentrating for a few moments while you try to light your inner lamps. After a few moments, you can go on with your way refreshed. Most human beings have no notion of these methods. They'll plod along for an hour or more, or even the rest of the day, their minds weighed down with problems fit to kill them. It never occurs to them to stop in a park, for instance, and try to change their negative vibration by communing with the trees, flowers, or fountains. No, they'd rather go drink at a pub and watch people coming and going for all the world like cows watching the trains go by. After which they go on their way again, still carrying their sorry burdens. And in the evening, they take them home and pass them on to their wives. Hello, darling, and with one quick kiss, they deposit all their gloom on her. And she, in turn, passes it on to the children, and so it goes. This is how people live, stupidly and unconsciously. Even though I am talking to you like this, I am not at all sure that any of you will be interested in doing this work of concentrating on light and seeing what effect it has on you, how it can model, purify, vivify, and resuscitate you. People are always ready to open their doors and their hearts to things that can only entail complications and problems, but they never seem to have any time or any room in their lives for light. And this is why human beings are permanently weak and miserable. They have not opened their minds, hearts, and souls and spirits to the only thing that is worthwhile, light. The exercise I have just given you can be applied in all circumstances. If you're cooking, writing letters, washing, dressing, or undressing, you can always find a few seconds in which to picture in your mind the light that bathes the whole universe. From now on, therefore, whenever you feel the urge to launch into an occupation designed to bring you more worldly advantages, take the time to think about this and weigh up what it will cost you in at least two other areas, your health and your spiritual evolution. My task is to give you the criteria which you can then apply in order to transform your lives to enter into other worlds. If I had to try and please you by preaching the rules for the old life, it would not be worth it. I might as well close up shop at once. So I shall go on teaching you the great laws which can help men to live more wisely and find the way back to their heavenly homeland. Henceforth, whether you are here together with many others or all alone at home, wherever you may be, remember to make contact with the source of all blessings, light, nothing but light. Many years ago, I must have been about 20 at the time, I read a passage from the Zohar, which I have never forgotten. It was in Bulgarian, of course, but let me translate it for you. 7 lights there are in the highest of heights, and therein dwells the Ancient of Ancients, the hidden of all the hidden ones, the secret of all secrets, Ein Sof. When I recited these words, everything within me started to vibrate and quiver. Those 7 lights are the 7 colors, the 7 chakras, the 7 virtues. Purple corresponds to sacrifice, blue to truth, green to hope, yellow to wisdom, orange to sanctity, and red to love. If you don't sustain us to support these powers by practicing the corresponding virtues, anyone who thinks that he can become a great magus simply by performing certain rites and practices without making improvements in his inner life is mistaken. Only by manifesting true light, purity, love, and truth can you achieve these goals. You must realize that the only means that is permissible in attempting to win someone's friendship and affection is that of light. Everybody uses money, seduction, violence, or expensive gifts because they think these are the most effective means. But the only means acceptable to heaven is light. So if you want someone to think of you and love you, send him or her a gift of spiritual light, a bouquet of light. Surround him with light. If you do this, his soul, feeling the presence, will appreciate you. Do you want your friends to be pleased to see you when you go and visit them? If so, don't make the mistake of most people and go and see them when you are feeling depressed, irritable, or worried. Before you go into someone's house, stop and recollect yourself for a few moments and picture that house and all who live in it bathed in light. If you do this, how could they be anything but pleased to see you? Know that you will be really fit and well only when you have learned to surround yourself with a strong, pure aura containing all the colors of the spectrum. This is the only true medicine. A powerful aura is protection. Moving forward, almost to the end. Every night when men go to sleep, their souls go out from their physical bodies and plunge back into the universal soul. While the body is resting, a considerable work of purification and cleansing goes on, and once done, the soul can return and take up its functions again. This process repeats itself every night, and even for some people during the day. At night, therefore, the soul goes from the body, and when it comes back in the morning, it finds the house swept, clean, and washed so it can take up its work where it left off. If the soul did not leave the body, men would be asphyxiated and die of poisoning, for the necessary cleansing would not take place. Now, the reason why human beings don't receive revelations from heaven is that they are prisoners of material concerns, which weigh them down and suffocate them. It never even occurs to them to devote a few moments to making contact with the divine world of the sun. The only thing they are interested in is how to settle this or arrange that. I'm not saying you should neglect your worldly affairs, but it's extremely important to lay aside one's preoccupations from time to time, just as you would lay aside a heavy burden. Take, for example, the beavers who carry huge loads of equipment. The bearers who carry large loads of equipment on mountaineering expeditions. From time to time, they lay down their loads, breathe freely for a few moments, sit down, refresh themselves with food and drink, and take up their load again. Why can't you do as much? From time to time, think about leaving your worries somewhere for an hour or two. I promise you, no one will steal them while you're not looking. There are not many people who are eager to assume others' burdens. So lay them down. They will be there when you come back, and get in touch with heaven and light. It is extremely important for man to know how to eliminate impurities from his psychic body. This is why a disciple spends so much time on exercises of purification. I'm not thinking only of physical purification, breathing exercises, ablutions, and so on. I'm thinking of spiritual means, concentration and prayer, for it is by means of these exercises that he introduces a special substance into himself which dissolves and washes out foreign elements. Just like as you take in food and eliminate the part of which cannot be assimilated, and if the kidneys or intestines fail to function correctly, poisoning sets in. But this is true not only on the physical level, equally on the etheric, astral, and mental planes. If the eliminatory functions fails, man poisons himself. Countless men and women are suffering from psychic poisoning because their etheric, astral, and mental bodies are overloaded with impurities. They need to be cleaned and unblocked so we can start flowing again. When life flows freely, it brings with it all the essential elements needed to the body. So what do human beings want most? Strength, willpower, love, and money. Above all, money. Everybody is in the running for money. But how many are ready to put themselves out for purity? And yet purity is the foundation of everything. If you concentrate on growing in purity, the rest will follow automatically. Purity will make you healthier, more beautiful, stronger, and more intelligent. Yes, I know, our clever contemporaries, who are all so learned, have totally neglected the question of purity. A pure life? What are you talking about? What good can that do you? They are busy with all kinds of other things. And then, owing to the impurity of their lives, they begin to falter and fall ill, and end by losing everything they have got, all because their foundations were shaky. Yes, purity is the foundation stone. There have been saints who have never opened a book or studied anything in their lives, but who concentrated all their efforts on perfecting their purity. And lo and behold, all the other qualities began to develop as well: knowledge, clairvoyance, the power of healing, simply because there were no opaque layers in them. No more barriers to the influx of all heaven's treasures. So you must work at this every day. Sweep, scrub, and wash out the impurities and clear a way for light to flood into you, as though you were a professional cleaning woman. He uses men and women here, obviously, from the 1920s, so we have to ignore some of that. I'm just quoting from the book. What? You will exclaim in horror. We're planning to become princes and princesses, and here you are telling us to become cleaning women? Yes. Didn't you know that a cleaning woman can become a princess? Once you have got everything clean and shining inside, you can throw off all your old rags and put on princely robes. Okay, back to light. If light can move so swiftly, it is because it is disinterested and has only the noblest and best intentions in its head. You've never heard anyone suggest that light has a head. Yes, light can move so fast because it has freed itself from everything base, animal or human. It has no burdens. If you see a person running fast, they do not have a heavy load on their back. And you see, light is very intelligent. It has never wanted to assume anything useless or burdens or stupid obligations that would hold it back. It has always wanted to be free. Light is more intelligent than anything or anyone. The ideal of a disciple is to free himself from all restrictions and throw off everything that is hampering him and become like light. This is not easy. As long as one is still living in the material world, one is always tied down by interdictions and obligations. But he who is conscious and decides to take light as his guide begins to free himself and vibrate so intensely, nothing can hold him back. He flies through space, visiting and observing everything. Most people have never left their villages, and they have never visited or seen anything, whereas light goes everywhere, sees everything that is going on. It is constantly learning. So we should address all our questions to light and ask it to tell us what it has seen and learned on its travels. But we are a long way from using methods of this kind. Nobody thinks of asking a sunbeam what it has seen or what it has brought back from all the places it visited. Still less does anyone decide to behave like a sunbeam. Every morning at sunrise, you have the ideal conditions for beginning life with intensity. But before you can do this, you must learn to free yourself from greed for material things. For you can increase the intensity of your thoughts and feelings and begin to travel through space openly if you are content with very little in the way of material goods. Last part here. We're almost done. I shall never agree to the suggestions of those who want me to give them more book learning. They are far too used to using their intellect without ever putting anything into practice. They don't pray, they don't meditate, they never do any exercises, and they are doing nothing to transform themselves. All they are interested in is knowledge. They read, they record, they make enquiries, they keep themselves informed about current events. But that's not the best way to evolve and free oneself. And they will find out one day. For they never do anything concrete. They never put all that knowledge into practice. People know everything and do nothing. They know that patience can work miracles, but they are not patient. They know that with gentleness, one can obtain extraordinary results, but they are always flying into a rage. They know, but when it comes to putting the knowledge into effect, they seem to lose interest. Last chapter. On a technical level, light has many absolutely extraordinary possibilities which ancient civilizations, such as Atlantis, knew long before our time. We know, for instance, that Atlanteans used to collect and condense the light of the sun by means of huge crystals, and that they used the energy obtained in this way to run all kinds of instruments and machines. In our day, scientists have invented the laser by means of which light is concentrated. But I don't intend to talk to you about the technical implications of the laser beam. I want to talk about its application to spiritual life. Now, the one thing I liked about laser, I didn't know that laser was an acronym, and it stands for Light Amplification by Stimulated Emission of Radiation. I was an engineer, and I never remember being taught that in school. It's crazy. So he's talking about basically everything in science is just a mimic of what's already inside of man. And he goes through the chakras and the caduceus and all these things. And he says, science simply adapts certain phenomena which already exist in man and applies them on the technical level. And he gives some examples of how this is done, like the Crookes tube and other things, including the laser, and all of these things already exist in the human body. So as he concludes, he says, I wish I could get you to understand that if we do our mental work correctly, when we are all here together, we shall be capable of emitting light as powerful as the laser and making its effects felt through the whole world. You can do this exercise at home and concentrate on light when you are alone, but when we do it together, the power is considerably amplified. So he's saying all we need to do is meditate, concentrate on light. Let me just read to the last few things. None of the other means you are in the habit of using to maintain your health, balance, and happiness are nearly as effective as light. Oh, I know you're going to say you don't believe me because you've already tried to concentrate on light and it did no good at all, whereas certain pills or tablets, you only have to swallow one and within minutes you feel fine again. Well, let me tell you that you have drawn the wrong conclusion from your experience. You have not yet learned to work correctly with light, so of course it is not effective. But if you learn to vibrate in unison with light, you learn to draw it into you and make it live within you, you will soon see what it is capable of doing. Nothing can be of greater help to you than light. And that is where I will end, that you can spend just a few minutes while you're meditating, put aside all your cares and worries. You can pick them up again later. But for the moment, leave them at the door and tell them to wait until you have finished concentrating on light. And then collect all those rays of light radiating from you, condense them into a powerful beam, and project it out into the world. This is the power of light that anyone, anywhere can use. It is 100% free. This is the biohacking I personally love to talk about, is the hidden aspects of things in nature that can be accessed just through our will and our experience alone, without spending any amount of money, without having to go to some special place. Everyone can do this anywhere they are in the world, and I hope you took something from this and will use it to your advantage.
If you want to be a corporate escape artist, head on over to howtoescapecorporate.com and sign up for the How to Escape Corporate Without Leaving Your Job course. Learn the exact methods to go from employee to entrepreneur. Turn your corporate existence into a corporate wonderland. It's time to take action. howtoescapecorporate.com. Remember, members get the full-length podcast over at howtoescapecorporate.substack.com. Become a member for $8 a month for the full podcast and members-only articles and videos.